This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. And do we have some bass fishing to talk about? We actually do have some bass fishing to talk about. We also have some things surrounding bass fishing to talk about. And we'll dive into that in the second half of the show. It's very apparent on social media over what's gone down over the past week that everybody has opinions on a lot of things in the industry. And by God, we are in a day and time and age where we have a platform to voice those opinions. BTL podcasts, all that shows, everything, message boards, comment sections, all being one of it. But what I have tried to do for the second half of the show, and we're going to dive into disqualifications, numerous suspensions, national articles, is I have like a lot of stuff here, like a lot of stuff. So, I'm just going to go through the stuff that's like written down based on how the process works and what the process is. And then, like I said, should you choose message boards, comments, comment sections to voice your opinions on that, have at it. That is the beauty of living in America. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful Easter. I actually headed to Southern California, Orange County, and spent that with my girlfriend's family. And one of the cool things that I got to do, if you've been following BTL, one of the new features in 2024, sponsored by Omnia Fishing, make sure you check out their Premium Pro app, is the Guide Day episodes. And I recently kind of explored a Guide Day episode that stepped outside of the bass fishing and went to the Salt, and that was with Captain Benny Florentino. And it was awesome. I actually was able to go there. He had a day off. I jumped in his 26-foot boat. We headed out to Catalina Island and caught calico bass on jigs, A-rigs, spinner baits, jerk baits. It was a really cool experience. If you haven't had a chance to go watch that Guide Day, go back, watch it. And I put a reel up on my Instagram about it, but a really cool experience that I didn't think I would actually get to partake in as quickly as I was able to. Before we get to today's guest, which we have a good one, we're bringing Scott from the Bass Tank back on, not for the whole show, but for a segment. I want to take advantage of this. He is the title sponsor of Justin Hamner, who I think was Hamner at Talladega or what? He was at some racetrack. I think he was at Talladega. I saw him signing the finish line at Talladega, which is awesome, which is super cool, with the Bassmaster Classic trophy on it. We had him on BTL last Monday, but we never really broke down his electronic setup. We never broke down what was on his boat. I was actually up at the Bass Tank while they were rigging Justin Hamner's boat this past year. I've been on the boat that the Bass Tank is rigged from Justin Hamner. So I said, Scott, you've been on BTL a lot, but I got to get you back on for one more. Can you carve out 20 minutes? We're going to run through exactly what he had on his boat. And then we'll take a break, and then we'll dive into what's going on. Before we do go to Scott, though, I do want to bring up something that is awesome that is happening in the industry. For the third consecutive year, BTL has teamed up with St. Jude for the Bass Fishing Saves Lives St. Jude fundraiser. 100% of those proceeds go to St. Jude, directly to the money that is raised through the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic the first week of May in Wabasha, Minnesota. That shirt is live. It is updated. There are two fantastic colors on basszone.com. Click on the Shop BTL tab or click on the tab in the YouTube description of this show. There's the shirt right there. Bass Fishing Saves Lives, BTL, and St. Jude. We changed a couple things up. $29.95 for the shirt. Now listen, it is like $8 shipping and handling. I can't get away with that. That's the only way that I can get this out super efficient and proficient. So it'd be about $40 for you guys to between 30 and 40 to get one. But Bass Fishing Saves Lives t-shirt that will run. I'm trying to extend that maybe through April 15th, but right now the store closes April 8th, April 7th on the BTL. But click on that. The Bass Fishing Saves Lives t-shirt. Each year we've done over $2,500 just from BTL supporters, and looking to increase that this year. While you're over there, after you have made put the BTL Bass Fishing Saves Lives, you're already paying for the shipping, guys. So here's the new apparel. Uncle Frank, the limited edition apparel. There was a mix up. It did have the spotted bass under the smallmouth shirt. That's fixed. It is what it says it is. If you order the smallmouth shirt, you'll get the smallmouth, even though there was a picture of the spotted bass. Understandable. The people who just put the t-shirts up put the wrong t-shirt under it. But if you guys have any questions, this is the quarter zip polo. I am 6 foot, 180 pounds. The large fits me perfect. All the garments on there pre-shrunk except for like the top t-shirt, the $25 and the classic heavyweight cotton sweatshirt. Go an extra size on those, but the rest of them are fairly true size. Threw a youth hoodie, threw a ladies hoodie in there, and that goes through April 7th. So already good response on that. So thank you for all of the viewers and listeners who have supported that. All right, let's get to some bass fishing and some bass fishing news. Let's bring in Scott Palmer from the Bass Tank headquarters. Scott, busy day in professional bass fishing. It's like we left for Easter, and then right before everything just dropped. We, like I said, Bassmaster, MLF, all sorts of crazy stuff. But we got to cover it because this show covers what happens in professional bass fishing.
Yeah, you do. It's pretty crazy. You sit back and watch the industry as a whole, and it's weird because it feels like there's drama across the board. And I'm like, man, I just want to fish. I just want to teach people how to catch fish and enable that. But I guess that's part of it for an industry this big, right?
It is. And the good thing is you can stay out of it and you can focus on rigging people's boats and selling electronics, because there's no controversy around electronics over the past 12 months in the bass fishing industry. But
none
I say that tongue in cheek. So the last time we talked to you, just to catch the listeners up, I feel like you maybe were a little bit shell shocked. You had just come off of a dark van ride holding the Bassmaster Classic trophy, and then we're at the Champions Toast, and then had Hamner in the Bass Tank Studios. We're a big part of getting Hamner's first full interview as the Classic champ. And then you have a good team at the Bass Tank, so I won't call out who it is, but I had one of your team members go, man, I'm worried about Scott. He just hasn't stopped for the last 4 days, and I think he might have a heart attack. And I said, he'll calm down, he'll get it together, he'll get it figured out. So over the past week, you had a good spot. Has the high actually come down to seeing the bass getting plastered everywhere in the bass fishing universe?
No, the high itself hasn't come down. We're still enjoying it. I told the guys, I said, guys, we really knocked this out of the park. Again, like you said, I've got a great team, and not just the Classic, but leading up to it, it's show season for us. And man, my guys, between rigging boats, shipping orders, taking calls, taking care of customers, we've been on the road for the last 6 weeks. And finally the Classic was kind of that cherry on the top, and boy, was it a cherry. And I told them, I said, guys, we're going to have to go out and celebrate a little bit. I need to take them to dinner and everything else. Then they need some rest, so it wasn't just me that needed it. Everyone saw maybe how badly I was run down, or, that I was running on fumes, but what they didn't see is the guys behind the scenes as well that were absolutely just as exhausted as I was. So got to give a shout out to them. They've just killed it. And so definitely looking forward to taking them and getting them some rest and having a little bit of celebratory dinner. But I did finally get some sleep. I crashed. I absolutely crashed hard. And so I'm not sure that I'm fully caught up on sleep yet, because I'm still like, man, I'm tired. But I'm getting there. So, and I wouldn't change it, just for the record. I would do it all over again tomorrow.
What I wanted to get you on was, a lot of times we'll break down the winning gear, the baits, the details, and all that. And that is important this year. Kind of a unique year here with Hamner using a variety of different baits to get the Classic win, primarily the jerk bait. But no secret that he was, I'm going to coin the term hybrid scoping, or I think the term that I would use is power scoping, where I don't know if anyone is used, surely people have to be using this term, but where you're not targeting individual fish or finesse fishing for them offshore. You're fishing in close quarters. You're using your bait to draw fish out and then seeing how the fish reacts to it. Is that fair to say that he was power scoping in this classic, Scott? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. He wasn't really specifically picking off, scanning around, driving around like everyone thinks is happens. He was using it like he would, your side or down imaging to find the cover, find the structure, and say that should hold a fish, and then throw his bait there. And like you say, get that fish to show itself, either eat it or get it to show itself, and then specifically come back and maybe target it, individually like that. And so it definitely power. There was nothing finesse about it. It was definitely a power game by and large. And, Justin's phenomenal with a jerk bait. It's amazing to watch him. And he likes a jerk bait, as he said, but definitely power scoping.
I think that's a new. I think you have guys like Taku and some of the guys who are more minnow-ish that I would say are more finesse scopers out. But I would put Hamner and obviously in the same category as Patrick Walters, his roommate, and a number of those other anglers. I think you have hybrid scopers. Yeah. I think you have finesse scopers, hybrid scopers, and power scopers. Yeah. But I think we're starting to see that now. Also, if you've also noticed, what's hitting the market is we're seeing. I know Gamakatsu just announced a new minnow jig head. We're seeing all sorts of new plastics that are hitting the market, all sorts of new jig heads, all sorts of new baits. That was kind of led by that first wave that Berkeley announced last year with like the Credge and some of those. So it is interesting because now we're going, oh, look at all this new stuff that we haven't seen. And that's kind of cool. But not to get into that discussion, I'm just saying this is kind of what we predicted would happen. Yeah. It's just a timetable to get stuff from concept to market, especially when a lot of it exists. Like we talked when we announced the Nano Alpha with Gamakatsu and Ted, is it takes a long time. There's a lot of stuff that may be in Japan, that may be in other countries. It takes a long time for that to kind of get over and set up in America. Yeah, it is. And it's, if I had an idea today, it may take me a year to get that to market, and that's just because now, if you're a bigger bait company, you may have, faster resources than that. But from the time to prove the concept to make sure the ingredients are right, if it's a soft plastic, make sure that it's not just going to tear up the first time, there's a lot that goes into it. So there is always a delay in it, and that's why it's kind of fun, because it's always evolving, always rolling, trying to chase the next thing. And what happened, what comes out a year from now, and so it's fun. I still tell everyone, and obviously I'm speaking from an electronic standpoint typically, but as an angler, it's just fun to be an angler right now because everybody's competing for our dollar, and so competition drives innovation, and that's what we're seeing. And so I enjoy it. I think it's fun personally. All right, this is what I want to do. I want exactly what's on Hamner's boat, and you've cleared this with him to where, so some of these guys are very secretive as to how it is actually rigged, like the brackets, the settings, that type of stuff. You've cleared this with Hamner. He's cool with it. You're cool with it because the Bass Tank rigged the boat. So I said, well, let's get on while the Classic is still fresh in our minds and everyone's rigging boats for the new year. I'm going to have the new Bass Cat Puma STS in the Bass Tank shop later this month, getting it rigged, unveiling a new wrap that might have a couple new cool logos on it for the next Bassmaster Open, the first weekend in May, which is, I guarantee I'm going to make that final day because it's also the St. Jude. And so now if I don't make it, I'm going to fly from Alabama to Minneapolis and then fish Saturday, Sunday. But if you do the flight, I guarantee first top 10 in a year and a half if I make that flight arrangement. So anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So dive into Justin Hamner's setup, what he was looking for and what ended up being on his boat when he won the Classic on Grand Lake 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So Justin is running 5 units on his boat, and at the console, he's just running 2 Garmin 12-inch EchoMap Ultra 2s. They're the 126s. He is running the GT56 at the rear. He is also running an in-hole GT8 for his, high-speed transducer, his shoot-through hole. So that's what he's running at the console. Then that's networked with 2 Echo Map Ultra 126, Ultra 2s. Echo Map 126 is at the fronts as well. Those are all networked. And then he's running his GPS map 8616, and that's not on the network because it won't talk to the Echo Maps. But that's just dedicated for his live scope. And that's the one that he has always in forward. That's connected to his LVS 34, which he does have barrel mounted, because on the shaft, he actually has the LVS 62, or also known as the XR, and people are calling it the saltwater transducer. And this one we've kind of, I say we've kept it under wraps from a standpoint of testing it, but Garmin released it. It's been out for a while, but no one's really talked about it. And honestly, and I told him we'll try this, and then we'll kind of see how this goes. And because he's really good with live scope. And so if there's someone that I could trust to give me good feedback, it was him. But on my way to ICAST last year, I actually stopped and put gave him the 62 to try the rest of the season because he was going up north, and it's tracked. It's absolutely tracked. And typically his configuration is the LVS 62 in perspective, and then the LVS 34 in forward. And that 62 in perspective allows him to see out there. I think he was telling me he was out there running 120 feet, 120 feet in perspective mode, which is just
double what the 34 is. Basically what I've found since you rigged mine for the last couple tournaments is 50 to 60 foot max on perspective. Yeah,
correct. And so that in itself is huge. That kind of gives that extra advantage. And the 62 absolutely has a play, in it. And like I said, I say we've been keeping under wraps. It's been out. It's not like, we had the ability to keep it secret, but the fact that he's been running it, we've been keeping a secret. And finally I told him, I said, dude, we've got to tell people, like, this is a thing, and we've got to tell people because it's legitimate. It's not, smoke and mirrors. I don't like doing the whole, hey, you need this when you don't really. And it's not for everybody, full disclosure, it's not for everybody, but it is a real, I hate the term game changer gets thrown around a lot. And so I don't want to say it's a game changer, but it is a really, really good advantage to add to the front of the boat for sure.
Now, did he have that in perspective during the Classic, or did he have that in? Okay. Did you talk to him at all if that perspective allowed him to find any of the shallower brush piles he was fishing around Horse?
He didn't specifically say, but he told me he definitely leveraged his electronics in finding those brush piles because, he on day 3, he fished an area he never even fished. So he put the trolling motor down and he didn't practice. He just put the trolling motor down and went searching. And, and that's, I know with perspective that would allow him to find those brush piles much, much faster than just having to scan around. Because if you watch the footage of him, you don't see him doing this number with his trolling motor. Like he's kind of like this. Yeah, he's kind of making some snakes, but it's not that constant panning back and forth that you have to do when you're scanning that hard.
Now, what kind of mounting bracket does he have on the 34? Because that has become a hot topic of discussion amongst guys as to whether they're mounting it on the barrel of the trolling motor, the shaft of the trolling motor, whether it's a 0 degree, whether it's a factory, I'm trying to figure that out myself. What did Hamner have set up? And then can you kind of explain the different types of mounts and brackets that are kind of exploding onto the scene right now?
Right. Absolutely. So his 34 is actually barrel mounted, and it's a 0 degree barrel mount. So it is straight up and down. There's no 8 degree offset. And
can you explain that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 8 degree offset basically is for the shaft mount of the trolling motor. And the whole idea of the 8 degree offset is simply that when we're looking forward, and I know the people listening can't see this, I'll explain it as detailed as I can. But basically, when we're looking forward, if we were coming straight down, we might hit the head of the trolling motor. So we might get some, interference or a blind spot, if you will, from the trolling motor itself. So the 8 degree just kicks it off just enough so that signal slides past the trolling motor. So when you put it on an external pole or the barrel of the trolling motor, you don't need the 0 degree, or you don't need the 8 degree mount to do that because we're clear of the trolling motor. So that's why, from the 0 degree, you're going to get a better return. But the thing people have to understand when you put it on a 0 degree is because now the beam is running straight back and forth, there's no offset. You have the potential to have more artifacts, more returns. You're going to get more returns. So you're going to potentially see more artifacts on the screen. And now I run a 0 degree. So, that's not anything that I worry about whatsoever,
Okay.
but it is definitely something to consider. It's going to change your picture a little bit. I think you get a better return, better image with a 0 degree. And then he's run the 62 on a shaft mount up at the top, and or I'll say on the top, further up the shaft, and he's kicking that out. So, it's an orientation like this, 34 down here, 62 like this up here, looking this way. Now, I do want to caution everyone when we're running two transducers that are running similar frequencies, we're going to get a little bit of crosstalk. Now, what you have to understand, it's not like it just blows it out. You can just see a pulse. You'll see a little bit of a pulse every now and again, and that's the signal going out. And once you get used to it, it's not like you can't fish through it whatsoever. And you saw it, It's just something you like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I just fish through it and don't worry about it. Yeah. Eventually you forget that it's even there, honestly.
So the way that I have been describing it a little bit is a difference between like a cavity back iron and a blade iron, where a lot of the tour players hit a blade iron where when you flush it, it's pure. You can move the ball more. It's has a different feel to it. The cavity back's a little bit more forgiving, but when you flush it, you want to, is that a fair assessment between like the 8 degree and then with the little offset and a 0 degree? Like you're going to have it's going to be a little bit more precise, but when you are dialed in, it's going to be easier to actually hit that target and be in the same frame on the same level with it.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good analogy from that standpoint, but it's more so that it's like, okay, here, let me give you this analogy. Using golf as the analogy, it's like hitting your ball on the edge of the water and having a ball retriever to go get it. That's the 8 degree. Okay, I've got the ball retriever to actually make sure that I can get my ball back. The 0 degree is just not hitting your ball in the water, because I don't need that retriever because I didn't hit my ball in the water. So the 0 degree is simply just if I'm in a position that there's nothing for the downward and down forward beam to interfere with that beam. The 8 degree just is there to clear the trolling motor. That's the only real thing it's for. But it does make it more precise. It does. But at the same time, I think it makes it easier to track my bait because everything is more in line as opposed to having to project that angle as it goes out. Because not only are we doing a 20 degree field out there, but then we're offsetting at 8 degrees. That now I've got to mathematically, as it's falling, think about how that's going through the beam.
This was the other thing that caught my attention, how quickly he was able to pick his bait up on his screen. Yeah. Did you set it up to where you have that 34 angled up towards the surface more to where it's easier to click up, or how was it on, a lot of times you see the screens and guys aren't picking it up until that bait is 2-3 feet under the surface. His was instantly, you could literally tell what line he was on the first as that bait hit the surface.
Yeah. And so one thing that is overlooked with people is there's a setting inside your live scope that says install depth. And by default, it's 1 foot. And that is a setting you want to set. If it's on a trolling mode, for example, it's going to be about 2 feet below the surface. And so the way that beam is running out and that top, if you don't set that appropriately, you're not going to catch your bait in time, but like you said before, it's 2 or 3 feet below. So if you are not seeing your bait hit the water, go change that install depth and do it in about, 0.2, set it down to 1.5, 1.8, 2.0, and see where that's going to, offset that. But keep in mind that that's also going to offset what your depth is as well. Not your actual depth, what it's reading, but if you've got a jerk bait that goes 4 feet, it may show it's going 6 feet. Now, reality is we don't care what that depth is because we're throwing it to a fish, right? Mm-hmm. We're not actually caring what the depth is. We just, hey, my bait's there and I'm putting it above that fish's head. But that is an overlooked setting that, I had to walk him through it because like, hey, I'm not seeing my bait. Like, hey, set this. Okay, cool. Yep. I'm back there again. But I do not recommend clicking that transducer up because it starts distorting what you're seeing. Okay. Those are designed to send and receive the beam at this specific angle. And if you click it up, that beam is going to hit it more broad, and it's going to distort what you're seeing. And so I do not recommend that, as you know, and it's also going to affect the compass inside the transducer as well. So I see a lot of forms like, oh, just click it up one. I'm like, no, that's not the right answer, you know. And sometimes when I'm throwing a buzz bait, for example, I will run that install depth down to like 3.5 feet, just because I want to see my buzz bait across the entire trop of the water. And because I'm fishing shallow, and I'm fishing, I'm wanting to see those fish come up, and I'm not really worried about the bottom depth from that standpoint, because that's a little extreme, but it's fun to watch it as well.
Okay. Next question then was power to the units, because his were extremely clean. I know that there's a lot of the newer bass boats, especially with this explosion in technology, they're coming with ample wiring for electronics. Talk about how you were the power and the wiring that you did in Justin's boat.
So we're still just using our power harness. The boats manufacturers are starting to come along with, upgrading the wire, but the problem that I still have with them, and this is just a personal thing that I just refuse to accept, is they're still trying to run through too many buses. They're like, oh, we're going to put you a bus here and this, and I want direct wiring. Every boat that we wire is still going to be direct to the units. Just because anytime we go through a bus or anything like that, we're presenting the possibility of voltage drops and other problems we're going to create. So this is going to be a dedicated wire. So we're going to continue to do that no matter what. And eventually like we talked about the delay in baits, eventually boat manufacturers say, okay, here's your dedicated wiring, and this is the size of it. With his size, the amount of load that he was requiring, it is 8-gauge wire for those units. But as you can see his screens, there was no voltage drops whatsoever. Now he's running 6 batteries. I will tell you that right now.
Geez, I did not know that.
Well, and here's why. So he's set up where he's got his trolling motor batteries. Okay, cool. He's running a 36-volt system. But the other batteries, we started doing the math on it. And again, he's running a very extreme case, and it was right on that edge of, man, this mathematically, this may work. So he's got his cranking battery, then he's got 2 electronics battery, and we're on that edge. And I said, man, you're probably fine, but like with what you do, you cannot afford to go down during the course of the day. And so he said, all right, I would rather be over than even remotely have to concern himself with it. And so that's what we're doing with it right now. And it is extreme, and it's not necessary for the majority of most people. If he wasn't a professional angler, we wouldn't have to run 6 batteries. But the amount of time that he spends on the water, it's absolutely necessary for what he's doing with the mathematic. Again, just breaking the math down, that's required.
Okay, I'm going to pull up a photo from Bassmaster. That's Hamner at the Classic there. So what I'm circling there, right there, that would be the big giant transducer.
Yep.
This would be the 0-degree barrel mounted 34 that's going forward. He's running, it looks like a Garmin
Force
trolling motor.
Yep, Garmin Force trolling motor.
And then you have some of the talk a little bit about then cable maintenance here too, because this is a good example of what you guys did, cable maintenance. This looks, I feel like I am the first one that had it done this way, because I came in after cutting transducer cables and said, guys, I am an absolute idiot. Make it so I cannot cut any cables on my trolling motor, put hooks in them, cut them, step on them, jerk them, anything. And this is what you guys came up with. And now it's the standard. Am I delusional?
No, I don't think you are. I definitely use you as a guinea pig. If I can make it mat proof, I can do it for anybody's boat. No offense, but no, that is it's our basically our cable jacket, our cable sleeve. I don't know what the right term for it. We have the Velcro.
There's the Velcro,
and you'll find Velcro across the board. I like Velcro for a lot of reasons. Velcro, even though I can get it to hold the cable nice and snug, but if that cable ever got into a situation, because trolling motors pivot, if it ever got in a situation where that cable was about to be pulled, it'll just slide underneath that Velcro and give without actually damaging the cable. The other side of it is I do fish shallow, and I do adjust my trolling motor. what I really like about Velcro is, guess what? I can just adjust my trolling motor, slide that Velcro down or undo it, and then restrap it on there. If someone uses electrical tape, it's stuck, and I won't even talk about zip ties because that's just a no, don't do it. But the electrical tape, once I cut it off, I've got to put new electrical tape on it. And the other thing I don't like about electrical tape is that when I physically am holding something that tight right there, now I'm creating a spot where that wire has a leverage point, right? So it's wire. If you move it back and forth, eventually could potentially damage it. And I'm not going to say it's guaranteed, but it's just, why risk it? Velcro is cheap and easy, and it looks good.
I do agree. It is a clean look. All right. I found a picture. This is his setup. He talked about the 3 graphs up front, which seems standard now at the top level of professional fishing. This is this top screen. That's a 16-inch screen?
That's correct. And you can see how shallow he is right there for the guys that look. And you can see that light spot at the top. And you can see that he's still ranged way down.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Scott. So we're looking at this picture, and he's looking at the top 20% of his 16-inch unit. Is that just because he happened to be in shallow water, or are guys running it that shallow consistently? I know everyone runs it on manual. That's live scope rookie stuff, but I always, and I am saying this using me as a guinea pig, not the guy who just won the Bassmaster Classic, asking you, am I doing it wrong by manually setting it? If I'm in, let's say 15 foot of water, I'll set it to 20 foot deep. Should I be setting it to 30, 40 foot deep?
Well, there's 2 things going on here. Number one, he's moving so fast that he's not going to reach down there and constantly being adjusting it, right? Because Grand Lake, and he's in these creeks, and you can see the bank behind him, and he may be in 5 foot 1 second, turn around and be in 20 foot, just that quick. And you're not going to reach down there and be bumping that up and down all the time.
Okay, so there's no real.
Well, then there's the other side of it is.
Oh, here comes Scott. This is a Scott answer, folks. Buckle up.
The other side of that is it is proportional. So the old 3-to-1 ratio of sonar is, for every 1 foot you go down, you side image out 3 feet, right? That's kind of the 3-to-1 ratio we talk about. There's a ratio with live scope as well. And that's everybody's homework. Go figure out what that is. But I run mine. I find that if I'm in 10 foot or less, I'm not going to go run it down to 10 foot. I'm going to keep it at minimum 20 foot. And because no matter whether I'm in 20 foot, whether I'm in 100 foot, if my range, the bottom of my range is the same, when I throw my bait out there, it's going to look the same. That fish is going to look the same. So if I'm always, if he were to lower the range, let's say that's it, he's in 5 feet right there. And let's say that he's got it ranged down to 30 feet. I can't see what it is. Look at you all. Look at you being all.
Idea where I am. There we are.
Look at you being all techie. I'm proud of you. But when that screen is going to represent the bait and the fish in a certain proportion, it's going to look a certain way. And so if I change that right now, even though he's ranged to 40 feet, it's going to make things look a certain way. Whether I'm in 10 feet or 20 feet, if I'm ranged to 40 feet, it's going to compress. It
makes little fish look bigger, big fish look smaller. That's how you end up casting a crappie and gizzards and that all day.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Still there.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're talking about, people, on this screen, in case you don't know, this line right here, that is the bottom. So there's nothing to read on 70% of this screen that we're looking at right here. That is just dead space bottom. He's literally scanning this little top sliver of his graph, and what Scott's saying is trying to figure out whether that's just something that he keeps standard so he knows what he's looking at, so when he goes out deeper he's not constantly readjusting. But he's also saying there's a little bit of method to this madness as well.
Yep. So it's both. Again, even if he was going to make that adjustment, he's not going to be reaching down there. He's just moving too fast, right? He's just moving too fast to make that, because he'd have to be constantly reaching down, and he's not going to. And then the other side of it is like I said, the proportion, because there is a method to that madness as well.
One more thing that I think is overlooked, and we'll come back. You can look at the setup of this screen. You have the live scope dedicated screen on an angle. The other two screens appear to be flat. Did he choose this setup, or is that something that you come down and you work with them based on what graph mounts they want, based on how they fish, what side of the boat they're on, as far as how you determine? Because that's, in this day and age, is a very clean looking setup compared to some of the monstrosities that exist on tour in 2024.
Well, and I work with him to say, hey, like, I want to fit his style. A lot of my customers are saying, they don't exactly know, so they want our recommendations. So we kind of go over some different things. A guy like Justin knows exactly where he likes to stand, his tendencies, things like that. And so I basically say, how do you want to, how would you, in your best case scenario, how would you want this to look? And then we make it work from there. Now, with that being said, also, when you put that many electronics up front, this is a lot, that we still have to clear stowing the trolling motor, and so that's where it's a puzzle piece. It's just a puzzle that we're putting together. But working with Justin to say, this is how we fish and this is what you want to look at, and you don't want that 16 right at your feet. You would really get that hump in your neck looking down at your screen all day long. And so you kind of, in my opinion, you always want that your live scope to be further away from you as far as like you're the angles of your head, so you don't have to look straight down. And but again, I like this for what this is. This is a really good, clean look up front, and it's not a bunch of junk, if you will.
So live scope only. This is his 34 LVS that's on the barrel. This top one, this bottom left one, I don't know which is which, but let's just say this one is connected to the 62 that is the perspective only, and you can't like switch them because you have a dedicated. So somewhere in his boat, you have two black boxes that are mounted, each one. So you basically are running two independent systems, one for the perspective, one for the forward.
Correct.
And then this third one over here is his mapping.
Correct. Yep.
And 1 second, this can also act as a backup too. If something happens, which it does, I don't know if that's where you're going with that.
No, I was going to say if something did happen, all he would have to do is just literally disconnect the other live scope, his perspective live scope, and plug it into the 16 if he needed to, just a network cable. That's all he would have to do. So I kind of give him a playbook. Of course he calls me if he needs me, but I give him the playbook. I kind of go over all the stuff. I do the same thing I do with you when we rig your boat. Like, hey, this is how this is connected. So when you do call me, I'm like, hey, remember we talked about this? You're like, oh yeah, okay, cool, yep, okay, I'm back up and running. So,
and then after all that was installed, if I remember correct, you went out for a half day personally and made sure it was, he's got his settings that you like, but you wanted to make sure that everything was working right, tweaked right, 100%. You went out to the lab, is the little private lake, or it's public, but it's kind of private because you don't mention it's your Lake X.
Yeah, it's lake.
You went out to the lab, you dropped the trolling motor, you made sure everything, just the standard side imaging that was dialed in, and then tweaked everything on the front, got him used to everything, let him fish a little bit with it to make sure that when he left it, it was dialed.
Yeah, and Justin's really good with his, he is better than most, Matt Panrack.
Well, he is a Bassmaster Classic champ.
Yeah, no, he is. The great thing about Justin is he has embraced this and he's tried to learn the technology. So I don't have to go as in depth with him. Now, of course, it's not going to leave my shop without me putting my hands on it. My guys, I trust my guys the whole 9 yards. But I always want to make sure that, hey, did we check this little thing? Hey, Justin, are you aware of this new feature? And a lot of it is just, because listen, guys like Justin, they're there to fish. And even though they embrace it, they may not be as aware of the new features on these new units every year. So I want to make sure that, he's aware of, hey, this is this, and this is where this is at, things like that. So yeah, it's definitely going through and making sure it's set up, because unfortunately, Justin lives a distance away from me, so I can't just run down there. Everything has to be over the phone unless it's really dire, then I'm in the truck rolling. But so far that hasn't happened.
All right, couple more questions. That's a good question, Pete. I'll ask it. So we're talking top end. It's like you're his pit crew, for lack of a better phrase. Just like I do. When something goes wrong, I call you. So we're talking the 3 units with the install, not product cost or anything. Pete's wondering, if you come to the Bass Tank or in general, like what's a ballpark install cost to come and have what Justin has in his boat installed? Not any of the actual product cost, just the install cost, the knowledge of setting it up, getting it the way you like it, and putting it together rock solid, and then getting them out the door with everything dialed in. Ballpark, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's. I would have to sit down and do it, but I would feel comfortable saying that's probably between a $1,500 and $2,000 install.
So less than one screen.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely. And it's there's always variations with I'm not here to gouge people. I'm not, and that's why I say there's a range there. I do have to cover costs and pay guys, and yes, I'm in business to make a little bit of money too. And so I get to a certain point, I'm like, man, I just don't feel comfortable. Even though the numbers say to charge this, I just don't feel comfortable charging that, because everyone works hard for their money and they're trusting me with their boats. And so there's some variation there, but that's probably between a $1,500 and $2,000 install as far as just the labor goes.
And then the last question, I'm hesitant to ask it. I have to ask, I mean, I know, Justin Phillips. Okay. So I really don't want to help him at all because he doesn't need any help. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He says, it's got to be the same Justin Phillips. He's on all the time. Yeah, I don't want to help him anymore because I'm like 1 for 19 against him on Eufaula. Like, have you ever like consistently beat him?
No. Yeah, not at all.
Would it make you feel worse if you found out that he was running all of his setups in auto depth?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so that was his question. He said, I have a Lowrance setup. I feel I'm a good scoper. I leave my units on auto depth. I feel like it works well for me. Can you explain what I may be missing?
Absolutely. And listen, I will tell you, because every time I say, hey, this is this way, there's always going to be somebody that's like, well, I've been doing it this way and it works for me. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not here to fight that battle per se, but this is what I will tell you from what you may be missing. When we run in auto, and I don't know if he's running in forward range auto as well, or just the depth, but let's say that if you're on a flat and you're in auto, no big deal, whatever, the screen's going to stay put, but we're okay. So when we're in auto depth, let's say we're going along and we're in 5 foot of water, 10 foot of water, and all of a sudden boat swings out into 20 foot of water. All of a sudden, this fish that I was seeing, that I was targeting, my chatterbait, my jerkbait, that looked a certain size, that fish, I was like, okay, that's a 4-pounder. I want to throw at that. All of a sudden, that screen is going to reproportionalize. Boom. It's going to drop, and everything is going to shrink. And I'm going to say, okay, I may lose my bait, and it may never affect me, but it may be at that critical moment when I needed to zig and I zagged because the screen resized itself. And so that is where you're going to, I'm not going to say struggle, but that's the danger of running auto depth, is continually resizing the screen. And I don't like looking at it personally. It just like constantly up and down, up and down, up and down. And I want it to set a certain way. And then I know that when I just threw at this fish, and, maybe it's one of those days I'm having a hard time sizing up fish, and I catch one, I'm like, okay, that was what a 3-pounder looks like today. That's what a 4-pounder looks like. Well, if that is continually changing, I'm eliminating a variable from my thinking equation, and I am all about eliminating variables where I can.
All right. Can I give away some of your stuff in the second half of the show for the best question? I'm going to do a little Q&A. So I'm going to give you a choice on which of your products you want to give away. Either the and you did. I only got one. We gave away 2 last week. I only got 1 screen cleaner email that I sent to you. So you can either give away the screen cleaner, or do you have any of those cool things that you had at the deal, like the casting, like the sonar from the bank? You can choose which you want to give away.
Yeah, we absolutely
this or that.
Yeah. Let's give away a striker cast. Absolutely. That's
okay. What was that? I saw that you had them on the booth, and they were like, "Yeah, we had a bunch of these." So I know we've got a bunch of like guys who fish off the bank because they listen to day 4 and they talk about it. So let's give them a choice and say it in the email, either the screen cleaner or the striker cast. Because for me, it would be even cool for me. I fish off the bank all the time.
Look, the first thing when they first came out with them, I grabbed one. I went out to my dad's ponds.
And it works.
Absolutely. Like I was sitting there throwing and looking at my phone, and I was like mapping the bottom of the unit and graph. It's just 2D sonar, but still, it was really cool to see. I'm like, oh, I've always
caught
a
it on
fish
your rod.
Yep.
You cast it out. It connects to an app on your phone, and you can figure out how deep where you're fishing in. And as you reel it in, you can tell what the bottom composition is.
Dude, it looks like a regular 2D sonar image. That's because that's what it is. And so you just reel it back nice and slow as you're watching it. And there's one of them that has GPS and one of them has just non-GPS. And it's just really fun. It's I bought them for some stocking stuffers, and they've sold, Christmas time for kids and things like that. But I'm like, forget kids, like not forget kids, but forget kids because this is awesome.
Are they on here? Are they on the basstank.com?
They should be on the basstank.com.
What do I need to look up to
look
show?
For Striker Cast.
I didn't mean I should have. This is one of my main problems. I should have cleared this with you because it is a $180 product.
It's fine.
You got two classic champs out of the last 3. You're rolling in it, Scott. You give away everything. There it is. That's it right there.
Yep, that's it right there. And the blue one, I believe that's the one that is with GPS. So let's do that one. Let's give it away.
Okay, so this is going to go for the second half of the show. I'm going to keep track because there will be some comments in the second half of the show. The most intelligent, insightful comment or question that adds to the discussion. How's that fair? And then I'll have them email me, and then they'll email you.
Yeah.
And if you want to get one of these things for less than $200, I know there's birthdays, all sorts of stuff coming up. These are really cool. I saw them I didn't know they existed in like a functional quality working form. I thought it was like made for TV stuff. And I was like, Garmin makes this? No, it's actually, it works. Like I said, I grabbed one and went right away. And a pond I fished as a kid, I got to see why I was always catching a fish there, because guess what? There was a laydown that was under the water I never knew existed. And so it was really cool. So I liked it myself. All right. So start getting your questions in. We're going to let Scott get back to work. How far out are you? Like, did you notice an uptick in people mentioning the Bass Tank? Like, did the fishing sponsorship program work like it's supposed to in this case?
This is when it actually worked. This is how you hope it works. Last week our website traffic, just traffic in itself. Now that's not people specifically that bought. Don't think that I wish all of them did, but it tripled. And we have pretty good traffic on our website normally. And so to see it triple was like, whoa, okay. That's pretty impressive from that standpoint. And it's been rolling pretty well. I do want to say one thing real quick. I've got some things working behind the scenes. While Justin was here, I had him sign some hats, and we're going to figure out how the best way to give those away. But those are going to be coming here shortly. And then I've got another thing, I'm thinking about giving away a pretty cool trip. I can't say too much yet. We've got to finalize it, but I think I'm going to give away a pretty cool trip, here in the coming days. And finally, yes, Justin was at Talladega. He did sign the finish line. And I sent him a message that was basically Ricky Bobby, the whole, I don't know what to do with my hands. And I asked him if he wanted to go fast, if they're going to let him drive a car. And he said yes, but limited to 65. And I don't know if they actually let him drive or if he had to do the whole Miss America, waving and driving around the background. But I know one thing, every time I see a picture of him, he's still holding that trophy for some reason. He hasn't let that go.
He said he wouldn't. Is this a trip like where someone would be in Oklahoma for the trip? Or
I don't think they're going to be in Oklahoma for this trip.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if someone was coming in, like, I had such a good experience with the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame trip with CJ Glenn. Like, he was like, could be a regular co-host of the show for Blast Month. But I was like, well, if you're bringing someone in, just bundle it together and bring them down, and we get them in the studio for a little bit. Yeah. This is, but no, this is something else.
Yeah. This is something else. Like it's kind of cool. I'm pretty excited about it. Just got to work out the details behind the scenes on how it may lay out and things like that. But some really cool stuff happening over here. And, but anyway, any other questions you have for me, sir?
Yeah, no. Well, there's a bunch of questions in there. We're still going to do our regular Scott answers questions way too in depth segments that we'll have like in the coming months. We're going to leave all that. We're already 51 minutes in. I told you I'd only keep you for half an hour. So I appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good, Matt. Thank you.
All right. See you. All right. That is Scott Palmer, owner of the Bass Tank. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to get into disqualifications a number of different suspensions in the world of professional tournament bass fishing. It's BTL on a Tuesday, post Easter Tuesday. Hope everybody was safe from the storms. I actually stayed down in Texas last night to try to stay away from the hail that was supposed to be up in Shawnee. Then it ended up being in Texas, and then the weather was clear up in Shawnee. Anyway, it worked out. So BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Gamakatsu, the innovation leader in fish hooks, is launching Nano Alpha technology in 2024. Nano Alpha is a new finish available on Gamakatsu's most popular hook styles. It delivers 2 times slicker performance, 4 times better corrosion resistance. Nano Alpha technology makes the world's greatest fish hooks even better in 2024 to help anglers catch more fish.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top 100, Strike King.
AFCO. Any fish, any water.
All right, welcome back, BTL on a Tuesday. There was a derby that took place last weekend. I guess no surprise at this point. Tater Reynolds on Toledo Bend just dominated the field. 83-4 for a 3-day total. He caught him cranking, shaky heading, A-rigging, a little bit of scope, a lot of knot scope, a 22-pound win, stacked final day. Blake Schroeder, my travel partner for the Opens, I think he was in the top 25 there. Castledine had a good tournament. I think the dude who won by like 30 pounds last year finished in the top 5 there. But Tater Reynolds, I would say quietly, but not quietly, very rapidly over the past 3 or 4 years has become a force to be reckoned with on both Rayburn and Toledo Bend. This is 4th top 10 of 2024 with MLF, 2 in the Yodas and 2 in the BFLs. His 11th top 3 finish since 2022 in Toyota Series and BFLs. I do not know him. I've never talked to him personally. I have good friends who are friends with him and say he's a good dude, very talented, easy to pull for. But yeah, 11 top 3 finishes, not top 10, top 3. Like if you look at it, it's like second, third, first, second, third, fifth. It's absolutely insane how many times that guy has gone out in the past 3 years, be it a BFL, which I'm counting as a incredibly difficult division, especially down there with all the guys that fish the BFLs on Rayburn and Toyota and the history that's down there with those, and that Toyota division, although it's not pulling nearly as many. I actually was a little surprised. I think it was just like 110, 112 boats that were in that tournament this year, which is that division the last 3 or 4 years has pulled between 160 and 200 boats for the same tournament in the comparable time of the year. It was kind of on top of the Classic. There was a lot of inclement weather that they knew was going to come in that week. So maybe that had something to do with the drop in boats in that Toyota Series event. But I mean, Tater Reynolds gets it done, 8304 Megasex. We're seeing a lot of 3-day tournaments, guys, this year, specifically one with over 80 pounds and with record-breaking weights, with, off the top of my head, what Scott Martin did in the Open on Okeechobee and the Open on Santee Cooper and this Toyota Series. There's been a lot of mega weights. So something else that came down since the last show, a March 28th press release from Bass. Bass officials announced today that after an investigation appeals process, Brian New's disqualification from the St. Croix Bassmaster Open on Santee Cooper Lakes has been upheld. The disqualification was handled down based on rule violation 7C of the Bassmaster Open rules, angler code of conduct, specifically intentionally interfering with an angler's ability to compete. New's appeal was heard yesterday by a 3-person panel. Remember, this was on the 28th, so that was heard on the 27th, which included 2 Bassmaster Open anglers, neither of whom competed in the 2024 Santee Cooper Open, and a Bass employee who is not part of the tournament department. You can read what Brian New wrote about it on Facebook and put up on Instagram. You can also watch Andrew Upshaw's response on YouTube. Last I checked, it had over 50,000 views on it. This is an interesting situation. This is the first time that I've seen a situation like this. Like, there was no, like, New wasn't trying to cheat. He didn't think what he did was illegal. I will say this, and it's to the benefit of tournament bass fishing. You go into any game or sport, and there's going to be 2 sides to every story. And in many instances, both sides think they're right. That's where the friction comes. And in a sense, it's theater because it is at the top level and people are wanting to see, and people take sides and it's entertaining there, but it is actual real people on either side of this. It is Brian New competing in his home state with the young kid at home, trying to win to get into the Bassmaster Classic, getting a $5,000 check. It's Andrew Upshaw on the other side, who is one of the hardest workers in the industry with a lot of irons in the fire, who is very comfortable with himself and the standards that he holds himself to on the water. And if you watch and listen to both sides, I think this is a perfect example of how the rules are supposed to work. Andrew thought he saw something. He called the tournament director. He was informed of his options of what he could or couldn't do as far as file an appeal or not. He chose to file it. The tournament director and the Bass staff then did their homework behind the scenes. They spoke with New. New believed that it should not have been a DQable offense. He filed an appeal. It went to the appeals committee. And none of this would have ever been made public. I would venture to say 90% of the people who followed pressure fishing didn't even know this was going on. The appeals committee did their thing. They came up with their ruling, and life goes on. This happens in every sport. It happens in everything. There was just a press release about it, which there's got to be some sort of legal deal as to why Bass doesn't go into more depth. Like, none of these that I've ever seen in the MLF did it a while ago with some of the stuff, but where they actually go into what happened. So, you can watch and see what happened, but when they just say that he broke the angler's code of conduct, specifically interfering with an angler's ability to compete, that could be a wide range of things. And in this case, it was a unique scenario. So it blows my mind how, I wasn't there. I did not witness it personally. I talked to Brian New about it. I obviously was rooming with Andrew Upshaw at the same time. I respect the hell out of Brian New. He's always treated me just as an open angler with great respect. I've been on the water. I've fished around him. I don't think New was trying to cheat at all. But I still have respect for Duke, even after this DQ. And I still would have no problem buying a beer and going out to drink with them. Same exact thing goes for Andrew Upshaw. Very difficult what Andrew did, knowing what would happen. And it literally just came down to what he thought was right and what Brian thought was right. And then Bass came out and they did their thing. This is how it's supposed to work. This is why you have a reputable organization that has an appeals, that has the history behind it, that has so many people that pay their money to the organization, believing they're going to get a fair shake regardless of who they are, regardless of what they are. And there's a system of rules in place. So I think that's kind of a closed book. We always do the 3 E's, the entertain, educate, and engage. And yeah, it is entertaining to see how it goes down, to read what Brian wrote, to see Andrew's response. You got a lot of their personalities in both of those things. Like I said, I'm friends with both of those guys. I'll continue to be friends with both of those guys. And for the most part, I thought it was handled in a professional manner. I don't know what the rules are as far as naming people who were involved with it. I don't believe that Andrew's name was publicly announced by Bass as the angler who reported what he thought was a violation. That was announced by Brian New. I could see being in that situation, not a malicious attempt. So I don't think any rule was broken in that. It is what it is. There was a lot of guys who just fired off literally. Like, I had to stop reading comments on a lot of sides because it is comical. The amount of people with 100% conviction make statements that are just wildly and factually inaccurate and completely untrue. Like, I couldn't even I just stopped reading it. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, let's move on to this one. So first thing that dropped on March 26th, this is a media advisory for MLF. 2 boaters disqualified at Toyota Series Harris Chain, suspended for 1 year. I'm already reading comments in here that are making me upset because I know there's stuff in there that's not true, that's not being said. But hey, everybody gets their own opinion. Boating accident occurred Tuesday, March 19th, day 1 of the competition of the Toyota Series on the Harris Chain. No serious injuries were reported, but upon investigation of the circumstances surrounding the accident, MLF determined that both boaters intentionally violated a no-wake zone, which resulted in a collision between boats. Mark Succi from Georgia and Douglas Reed from New Jersey violated rule number 9. Specifically, Succi and Reed operated their boats in an unsafe manner and violated a posted no-wake area. They have been suspended for all MLF tournaments for at least 1 year. I have no idea what happened in this. All I know is that there was a picture of one boat on top of another one and a media advisory that says apparently they had a pact that they were going to blow a no-wake. But I do think it's interesting, especially after seeing that picture and especially after seeing some incidents that have happened on the water, that happen annually on the water, because this is a dangerous sport, even with seasoned veterans. It is, because a lot of it comes down to decision making and spur of the moment and split second decisions. There are going to be things that happen when you are on the water. So I thought that was interesting for a year. And then 3 days later, Major League Fishing comes out with another news release. I don't know what the difference between a media advisory and a news release. I guess it's just press releases. Major League Fishing announced Friday that Bass Pro Tour angler James Watson has been suspended for multiple violations of the standards outlined in the 2024 Major League Fishing Angler and League Participation Agreement and the 2024 Professional Bass Tour Talent and Promotion Agreement. Now, those are 2 documents that are not on the MLF website, the Angler and League Participation Agreement, and the Professional Bass Tour Talent and Promotion Agreement. However, in one of Watson's posts, he was told, and I will read this, in a letter that Watson received, it was quoted, "Your ongoing malicious acts directed at Major League Fishing leadership, willful disregard for the Bass Pro Tour sportsmanship rules, sportsmanship 7A, B, and C," which we have sportsmanship rule A, B, and C right here, and continued statements in derogation of the league harm all Bass Pro Tour anglers and will not be tolerated. Now, I got this out of a very interesting article because I was perusing the internet just to see if this had made national news, and by God, it did. So here's the article on Microsoft here by Gear Junkie, which this cracked me up. The title of it is Major League Fishing suspends, quote, "King of Trash Talk, Jim Watson." This is Rachel Schrute, possibly related to Dwight, that was posted 22 hours ago. And she kind of just went over the thing, but it's just, there's some funny stuff in here. Outspoken pro tour angler Jim Watson won't be competing in any MLF events until at least December 31st, 2025. And then it just kind of goes through, it talks about how, Worldwide is the king of trash talk, picture of him in a flat bill hat with a surly look and some dark sunglasses on. And then literally the article below it is Justin Hamner holding the Bassmaster Classic trophy with Justin Hamner, crowned 2024 Bassmaster Classic champion. But let's go through the rules. So first of all, the thing that caught my attention, and I'll go through why, just completely objectively, why this is what it is. So at least 1 year for the two boaters disqualified in the Toyota for willfully. Watson gets at least a year and 9 months, 8 months until the end of 2025 for disregarding the Bass Pro Tour sportsmanship rule with continued statements of derogation of the league to harm all Bass Pro Tour anglers. So if we go over to, and these are readily available. I don't know. I haven't caught up on podcasts. I don't know if anybody or anywhere else has dug into the actual rules. I commend Major League Fishing and the Bass Pro Tour for putting this out because it makes it really easy to actually figure out what's going on. There's just a couple people and titles and things that I am trying to track down on how it all works, because I think we may end up in a circle here. So sportsmanship A is number 7 here. And it says sportsmanship violation is defined as aggressive or hostile behavior directed at a fellow MLF angler, MLF official, a non-competitor, or any representative of MLF, including the use of profanity directed at these individuals. Any sportsmanship violation penalty will be determined by the MLF tournament director and the rules infraction committee made up of the MLF executive vice president and general manager of MLF vice president of operations. Which, based on what I could tell, Boyd Duckett is the MLF president and CEO. So he is not, unless he is on the rules infraction committee, which he is not, because it is the executive vice president and general manager of MLF. So those are the ones who are determining whether he had a sportsmanship violation. So it also mentioned in here A, B, and C. So B is a flagrant violation. And it says a flagrant violation of any act that reflects unfavorably upon the positive efforts of MLF, MLF sponsors, spectators, fishery conservation, and clean waters, including littering, will not be tolerated. Any flagrant violation penalty will be determined by the MLF tournament director. And then C, MLF anglers are expected to follow the high standards of sportsmanship, courtesy, safety, and conservation. Any violation of the standards may be deemed cause for disqualification. It's a 6 or 7 page rules. Flagrant violation is defined as any act that reflects unfavorably on the positive efforts of MLF sponsors, spectators, fisheries, conservation, clean water acts will not be tolerated. So you could peruse the internet. I think based on that, James broke rules 7, A, B, and C, and it was up to MLF to determine what his penalty should be. In one instance, they chose a year before possible reinstatement for 2 guys who willfully blew, according to the media advisory, intentionally violated a no wake zone, which put lives at harm. And in the other option, the James Watson suspension, he violated Rule 7, A, B, and C, and was assessed a penalty to where he can't apply for reinstatement until the end of the year. The length of that is 100% up on MLF. There is nothing in the rules. And like I said, the other 2 documents, that I have not laid eyes on those documents. I don't know if in that it says this is the penalty for breaking this. I don't know if he was aware of that. Ironically, Watson's got a lot of publicity from this, and he's not a dumb dude. And MLF had to do something. And it was as a bystander in this, just watching, I thought it was a very interesting exchange on both theirs. The timing, dropping it immediately after the Classic instead of before the Classic, where it would get buried. So it was obviously out there. Watson, I think all this kind of started with the podcast that he started. He's going to be on, at least what I know, he might be on many others until then. I think Luke is going to have him on April 7th or 8th. I'll let him have that. Have at it. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about any of the suspensions, any of the disqualifications, and any of the stuff that's going on. Try to present it with the rules and see what happens from there. And then when something's happens or doesn't happen, we'll have it on BTL. But I mean, heck, I'll watch it. I'm entertained. I want to know what happened. I follow the stuff too. But like I said, there's some case studies here in like human behavior and realizing that there's people and livelihoods behind it. And sometimes it's just a transaction. It's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is. But it also happens in a ton of other sports too. It happens in every other sport. You have suspensions. You have guys going after league presidents. You have, just look at like the NFL commissioner and the NHL commissioner and rules and guys who get suspended and guys who don't and what they say, and coaches getting fined hundreds of thousands of dollars and suspended and kicked out. Like, it's not just a fishing thing. It does happen in professional sports. It is entertaining to watch. It is very interesting. It is very intriguing. I will follow it. But as far as like doing a whole show on it on BTL, I just don't want to dive into that. So that's all we got for that. So very interesting week in the world of professional bass fishing. So I didn't really see a ton of questions. So here's what we're going to do. I'll announce today that tomorrow, Wednesday, April 3rd, Jacob Wheeler will be on the show. I love it when Jacob comes on. And I am going to ask him about the $180,000 icon that I saw on the Explo floor there at the Classic. We're going to talk. We'll talk about a bunch of stuff with Jacob Wheeler. He's always very open when he comes on and generates a lot of discussion. So Jacob Wheeler tomorrow on the 3rd. And then next Wednesday, Tom Brubaker from Strike King. Strike King and Lose will be on, and everybody that's watching this live, all 300 plus live viewers, there's a way that you can get involved, even if you're not entered into a tournament, and win some cash and some great prizes from Strike King and lose. I don't think it's even announced yet, so I'll stop there. But we're going to take a final break. When we come back, wrap things up. BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Yes. Fishing isn't just a hobby, it's an obsession. Whether it's blazing hot or bitterly cold, bright sunshine, raining, or even snowing, someplace, somewhere, there's a fish that's ready to bite. And as the angler, you need baits that will catch the fish anywhere, anytime, no matter the conditions. From throwing topwaters to cranking the depths, know the baits to throw. Choose Spro.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out.
All right, welcome back. Wrapping things up here. There is a very interesting tournament. I talked about it, I think, with Matt Steffen last week. The Touring Anglers Association. I think it's a $5,000 entry fee on Lake Lanier, April 1st through 4th. So currently going on right now, and there were a lot of rumors, and people are like, yeah, I'm fishing this tournament, but it's the no live scope transducers. They clear your graph of waypoints before you get like basically a 4-hour ride through. There's no practice. You can't have a 360. You can't have a forward facing sonar on the front of your boat. And the payout based on 50 boats. I just saw it right here. Payout based on 47 paid entries. First place, $65,000. 12th place, $10,000. So they pay 6th through 12th is $10,000. 5th is $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, and $30,000. So the top 4 anglers all make $20,000 on a $5,000 entry fee. They pay 12 out of 47 paid entries. And then if you look at the leaderboard, dude, there are some interesting people in this. I'm sure I'm going to pass over some of the Lake Lanier locals. No offense to them. I just don't know the scene on Lake Lanier. But Andy Morgan, who I just got his number, I'm going to try to get him on next week, early in the week, to talk about this tournament and how it went down. Brandon Polinick, Corey Johnson, David Williams, Drew Cook, Emil Wagner, Hank Cherry, James Watson, Jared Littner, Jason Meninger, Jeff Gustafson, Jimmy Millsaps, Joey Cifuentes, John Cox, J. Todd Tucker, Keith Carson, Paul Marks Jr., Paul Marks Sr., Sam George, Trent Palmer, bunch of guys. It's a heck of a field. 47 anglers. You can follow all that going on at touringanglersassociation.com. Now, 47 with those names for the first one. And we talked about this. No practice round. You get a 3 to 4 hour ride along. Equipment restrictions. The following equipment must be removed before the ride along, which is live scope, forward facing sonar, and 360 image transducers. You have to clean your graph off. All angler GPS units will be restricted to only waypoints created during the ride around and tournament day, strictly enforced and reviewed by tournament staff. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. I know they're planning more in the future. They've got a lot of big names supporting it. The payout is incredibly good. The entry fee is incredibly high for it. I think they were hoping for between 150 and 200, ended up with 47 paid entries. So this could be a one-off. It could be a sign of things to come. And there's also a big fish prize of $5,000. So Touring Anglers Association. All right, that was kind of a hodgepodge of a show today. Big shout out to Scott Palmer for coming on, talking about all things Bass Tank and Justin Hamner setup. Do want to remind everybody, head over to basszone.com, click on the BTL merch tab. If you buy a BTL and St. Jude Bass Fishing Saves Life t-shirt, I forgot to mention that also includes a BTL vinyl decal or sticker that will be included with it. And then if you want to cut off on some of those shipping costs, you can also throw in some of the BTL merch, some of the Frank Scalish Signature Series merch. Store open through the end of the week, which would be April 7th. So tomorrow, great show. Jacob Wheeler returns to BTL. And then Uncle Frank on Thursday. So I think we covered it. Covered a lot in today's show. Hope everybody had a great Easter. Hope everybody stays safe as those storms rip towards the east. And then also on Bass After Dark with Ken Duke, there was a vintage appearance last week, or on Thursday, by the one and only Mark Jeffries. He jumped on, had a couple epic rants. So if you're not impressed by my best attempt to be Switzerland in polarizing bass fishing topics, feel free to go watch Jeffrey's Bass After Dark if you're missing that element. I watched it, a little bit of nostalgia in there. He's been keeping up with the industry. Ken Duke, Brian the Carpenter, those guys, they got him wound up a little bit, and they do a really good job over there every Thursday night on Bass After Dark. So, all right, that's all we got. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. We'll see you then. Later.